Afternoon, folks. I just spent some time rototilling the garden, and I want to show you what happens to lasagna bedding the second year. So lasagna bedding is where if you have like grass or weeds and you don't want to dig them all up, you put down some cardboard, and then over top of that you put either compost or hay or straw or the stuff that you would make into compost, like maybe manure and leaves. So all of this area here, I put down a layer of cardboard, and then I set potatoes on that cardboard, and then I just covered it in straw. So I didn't add any soil, and I didn't add any like compost or anything like that. I didn't remove the cardboard at all. So I've just run the rototiller over this. You can see there's some hay or straw left. Would have been straw, but there's not a lot. I put down 6 inches, 8 inches, 10 inches, something like that, like quite a ways to completely cover the potatoes and let the potato plants grow. And there's no cardboard in here. It just all broke right down. But what I did notice is that over here I had some tape that hadn't come off the cardboard, and it just wrapped itself around my rototiller, so it pulled right out of that soil. And here's a different kind of tape. Look at that. So the cardboard is completely gone. You can see there's none here anywhere. In the center here, I didn't put down cardboard. What I did is I put lumber wrap, which is basically a tarp, over the grass, and then I planted nothing and just let the lumber wrap kill the grass, and it's gone. So it's amazing to me how effective that is. You think, oh, well, it's kind of gross, like putting cardboard in the soil or whatever. There's a little bit of cardboard here. That's all that's left. This didn't get covered with hay at all. It was just on the path. So you can see there's pretty much, it's the only fragments of cardboard I can see in this garden. And then 2 years ago, I did the same thing over here. And as you see, even the straw has broken down there. And then also 2 years ago, I did the same over here, and it's just a garden. And all of that grass, instead of being put into a compost pile and then the rain falling on the compost pile and putting the nutrients into the ground underneath your compost pile, it's the nutrients are all in the soil right here where plants can reach them. They rotted into the soil and added some nice good texture. A little bit of crabgrass here in this chive. You're just gonna watch me weed, aren't you? Maybe I'll come back and do this. I really like the little bit of weeding that I do, probably because I don't do a whole lot of it. And when I do weeding, I just throw the grass over here. At some point, a goose will think that's a delicious treat. My greenhouse. That's my little rototiller. Nothing fancy, nothing new, nothing expensive, but means I can do my garden, and assuming that everything else is prepped, maybe just 2 hours instead of 2 days of digging. Loosens up the soil so that you can just pull the weeds right out. I really like my rototiller, but I really like all of my garden stuff. Having a greenhouse is amazing. Having a garden for years in a row is amazing. I need to clean this strip up here. This is the tomatoes left over from in the greenhouse. So I need to pull out the sticks and put the tomato debris stems over into the compost there where the squash is going to be. and deal with that little compost pile somehow. That's mostly stuff from the rabbit. So a mixture of hay and wood chips and pee and poop, rabbit poop. So that can go actually probably right on a garden. This is going to be the tomato greenhouse. That little one over there is going to be the pepper greenhouse. And as I go along, I think I'm not going to have time to put in a planter at the base of this, but I want to eventually have a planter at the base under the eaves of that, and then have the side done in clear, probably polycarbonate, just like the roof. It's kind of fun actually. Here, we use the greenhouse to get heat for tomatoes. So it just, the average temperature isn't very warm. They wouldn't really grow very fast or ripen very well here without a greenhouse. And on the coast, I also wanted a greenhouse for tomatoes, but that was almost more to keep the water off of them, because it doesn't get cold enough on the coast to kill the disease spores. So they need to be the disease spores for blight, early blight and late blight, pretty much only start to sprout if they're on leaves that are wet. So if you keep the leaves from getting wet, then you're good. You don't get the disease even if it's in the soil. So that's why you cover tomatoes on the coast. You can see this is just the first little bits of my peas starting up here. Oops, I got cut off looking at those peas. They're a salad or an edible that you snip the curly tendrils off and you eat those. So they're not really for making like peas, the pods. Over here, you can see I've planted beets. And I've planted some radishes. And one of the funny things about my garden is that I have a lot of lamb's quarters right here, which is a kind of a weed. You can see those little leaves. And lamb's quarters are very closely related to beets. So they have very similar looking seed leaves. The only difference is that the beets are a little bit more red. I don't know if you can see right here. Little red sprouts are beets. That's the lamb's quarters. Or if we come down here, oh, here's a good one. Right here, these ones are beets. They're a little more red, and lamb's quarters behind them. And I leave the lamb's quarters. Well, lamb's quarters are my favorite green. They're not really a weed for me. I leave them to go to seed in the fall. Then instead of trying to come along and pick out and figure out which ones are beets and which ones are lamb's quarters, I just wait till they get a little bigger and I pick them and I eat them. And when the beets are left, that works out really well for me. My little rototiller. It's not new, not expensive, not fancy. It sure did this garden a lot faster than I could by hand. And if you come down here, I noticed today that my cascaps, these have been in these pots way too long. So I'm surprised that they're still alive, but they're doing well. I really like cascaps. They're just super hardy here. It's really hard to kill them, which I appreciate. It's a little watering trick. Instead of having to stand here with the hose and have water go in like between the pot and the soil and just drip down, I keep a bucket or a pool of water here, and I just set the pots in the water. They soak it up. I go away and do something else for a bit, and then I come back and I take them out of the water. and it makes sure that the water soaks right in there. I don't really have to stand here and babysit it. So that's a good trick. You have a lot of pots. And here we are back in the back, where I'm gonna get my kale and my cabbage and start putting them in. So, oh, look at all my raspberries. Oh, it's so exciting. It's amazing to be able to have all of this. It's just amazing. There's a little patch of chickens over here. This is where I threw all of my weeds earlier. And they're going over it and picking up the bits that I threw out over the fence. Isn't that great? What a beautiful afternoon. What a nice day off from work. I might as well come look at the Ancona ducks for a little more. Aren't they cute? Spotted ducks. They lay lots of eggs. They're not huge for eating, but they're not bad. Off to the right, you can see some of a pig. So that's one of the boars that didn't get castrated. Chickens love meat, and you can see they left the skeleton and they left the hide, but they picked the meat right clean from those bones. And that protein from the meat went into their eggs. And that set of eggs is being used to raise chicks, actually. So even though it's too bad that that boar wasn't edible for me, it's pretty great that everything gets used and reused here. You all have a good afternoon. Keep on keeping on there. See if you can get out into the sunlight at least a little bit. Take care.